Hi there, and welcome to Flip the Script, Silver Bullet Central, Episode 4. Ooh, the Snowball Snuggy! My name is Becc Holland. I'm the CEO and founder of Flip the Script. Before you think I'm absolutely insane and stop the video, the voice actually does make sense once you watch the session. But before you watch the session, you need to go ahead and download the deck so you can follow along at each step of the way. Once you've done that, let's go ahead and jump in. So let's start with a bit of an agenda. There are going to be 4 different pieces to today's agenda, per usual with the silver bullets. Number 1, what is it? Number 2, why would you use it? Number 3, when would you use it? And then we'll finish off with how you'd use it. So let's start with what is it? See, what it is the Snowball Snuggy is a way of selling where you communicate to your prospective buyer by way of your words, or more importantly, your behavior, that you find value in them and you want to add value into them, regardless of whether they give you what you're after or not. So why is it called the Snowball Snuggy? Let me introduce you, Snowball, with a little bit of a story. Snowball is my parents' dog. And because I am home for COVID and in quarantining with my family, I've gotten to know Snowball quite a bit. So I won't go into great detail, but we do a lot of different activities together. Every single morning I take her to Starbucks and we get her what's called a puppuccino, which FYI is just whipped cream in a cup. The Starbucks crew knows her really well. They sometimes won't even serve me coffee if I don't have her in the car. We go on several walks during the day. I feed her dinner. But every single night before I go to bed, I cook egg whites and I watch a show called Nurse Jackie, which is an amazing TV show. And I sit there and eat these egg whites. And because I'm eating these egg whites, they're a Snowball. Snowball wants the plate. So like every normal lab who wants to eat everything around her, she comes up and she watches Nurse Jackie with me in anticipation that after I'm finished with my egg whites, I'm going to put the plate on the floor and she can get to clean it. She can get to lick it clean. Until one night, I realized something. So Snowball typically would lick the plate and then she'd file out of the room, because the plate is done. But one night, after she had licked the plate and the plate was clean, she was just sitting there and she was staring at me. So after about 5 minutes, I'm like, what does she want? I look down, the plate's clean. She's already gotten her egg white fill for the evening. And I realized in that moment, oh, Snowball wants to snuggle with me. So I called her up on the bed. I said, come up here. And Snowball jumps up in the bed and she, sure enough, starts snuggling with me. And she stays there for about 30 minutes and falls asleep, so much to the point where I had to wake her up to get her out of the bed to leave. So what does that have to do with sales? In that moment, my view of Snowball was changed. I thought that she was just there to get the egg white plate and for no other reason. And the minute that she got that egg white plate, she planned on leaving. And I realized in that moment that regardless of whether she got the egg white plate or not, Snowball wanted to spend time with me. She wanted to snuggle with me, she wanted to watch TV, she wanted to sleep near me, etc. But that she wanted to be with me regardless of whether I gave her the plate or not. So the next evening, whenever she came up the stairs looking for the egg plate, I was more likely to give her the egg white plate because I knew that regardless of whether I gave it to her or not, she wanted to be there and spend time with me. So, look at her. She's got a cute little face and she wanted to spend time with me. So regardless of whether I gave her that plate or not, we got to hang out together. So what does that really have to do with sales? Oh, there's one more picture. I just want to get out of the way so we can all see the nice little neck fat that's going on here. So what does it have to do with sales? Whenever you're selling into someone, you're essentially trying to strike up some kind of relationship out of thin air. You're trying to build rapport, you're trying to build trust, you're trying to build advocacy, you're trying to communicate to your buyer that you really want to take care of them. Or if you're not trying to do that and you're in sales, I would suggest that sales is not the field for you. You need to be really after adding value to your buyer. And you're hoping that at the return end of that if you do meet those buyer pain points, if you do, uncover enough pain, etc., that your buyer will return that favor by buying your product and rolling the dice that your product is a way to alleviate that pain. However, there are a lot of instances where your buyer can't buy. If COVID has taught us anything, it's that through people pulling mid-sales cycle, we have budget rollbacks, we have people laying off different, parts of their organization, we have people scaling down, we have people eliminating headcount, we have people cutting tech stack spend, etc. during that process, if it's taught us anything, it's that people remember times like that whenever and how you treat them during that time. So we're very much like an elephant in our mind. When someone does something really, really well for us whenever nobody's looking, we remember that. And when someone doesn't treat us with the utmost respect, that communication is also very much so received. And we remember that whenever budget does unfreeze and we do need to buy a product, who is the person that we want to buy with? So all things being equal, people want to buy from people that they really, really like. So you want to build that great relationship of trust, advocacy, rapport, etc., so that if all things are equal, that you're the one that they go with. So why you would use it, number one, is it conveys that you're genuine. It conveys to them that regardless of whether they buy your product, regardless of if they give you that meeting, regardless of if they give you the introduction or not, you're still there. And you still want to add value to them, and you still find value in them and their work. So a lot of times whenever we're personalizing, if we're sending over this great outreach that is personalized to their work, if you don't do something like this or don't have this mindset of the Snowball Snuggy, then essentially you're telling someone, hey, I found value in your work and I really liked this point of this article that you wrote. And then if they don't give you the meeting, and if you're, not so nice to work with, or you immediately ghost them, you're communicating to them that that was a disingenuous statement that you said. So we're after people who are real, people who are telling us the truth, people who will take our back, whenever we're not looking. And so this is a great way, and we'll get into how you can use it in a minute, but this is a great way to convey to your prospect that you're very, very genuine. Number two, it makes them more comfortable with you. So I make decisions pretty early and often on whether I can really trust someone. And it's usually off of an example where they could have done something negative to me and they didn't, or they had the opportunity to do something positive for me, even though it meant nothing in it for them, and they did. And so this makes me more comfortable with someone of like, oh, okay, I can really open up the kimono here because this person, given the situation again, I can really trust them. So trust is an invaluable and very, very hard thing to achieve, especially whenever cold prospecting. So the Snowball Snuggy and basically giving some kind of conveyance to our prospects that we value them regardless of whether they buy our product or not is a great way to build trust long term. So a lot of people say that in sales, or a few people say that in sales, it's a short-term game. I could not disagree more. It is a long-term game. I cannot tell you the amount of people that have been there for me because of something that I did very, very early on in our tenure. Maybe it was a different product, different company, etc., years from then. But it basically was, the frame was set at the onset of our relationship whenever I did something or they did something. So it strikes up this relationship to where we'll probably cross paths again, especially if we're in tech. So you want to make sure your prospects are comfortable with you, and this is a good way to do that. Number 3, it displays customer advocacy. Number 4, it earns you a seat at the table before it's too late. I have a friend who I will not mention by name, who is a recovering alcoholic. And this person, I remember, was saying like, hey, well, it's interesting. So many people want to come to my, whenever I get this chip for my 1 year, but no one really wanted to be there for me whenever I was calling them at 11 p.m., and I had a problem or I needed to talk a craving through. So if you're not there at 11 p.m. whenever that craving is being had, then arguably most people won't want you there at the 1 year ceremony. So you need to convey to your prospect that like, okay, I'm here at each step of the way so that it's not too late of when you're coming in for the glory at the 1 year chip. So this is a great way to do that, and tell your prospect, communicate to your prospect that whether it pays off to you in the short term or the long term that you're still there, then it makes it easier on them to really trust you, open up to you, and want to buy your products. Number 5, it enables them, enables the elephant syndrome, kind of like I covered earlier. We are creatures of memory, and we remember how someone made us feel. So if we do this at the onset, it helps our prospects really trust us throughout the entire relationship, regardless of that's at this company or the next one. It sets up for a long-term sale and a customer relationship, makes them want to buy from you more than they ever did before. So again, this is all things being equal. Snowball Snuggy doesn't work if your product doesn't work. So we want to go for the best case scenario of if things are equal, and we talk a lot about how to sell, apart from the relationship sell. But, all things being equal, we want to make sure that we have the advantage that we've led with our character. So they want to buy from us more. And the last one here is in a competitive sale, when they're evaluating their purchase of a different vendor versus you, they're going to go full package. So I've never seen someone say like, oh, okay, I'm evaluating the tech only. Typically, I'm seeing people evaluate based on a number of criterion. What was the prospecting like? What was the sales cycle like? Was the person pushy? What did they go for in terms of pricing? What does the customer success rep look like? Did they introduce that person beforehand? What is their overall cultural vibe? And does that fit in? Because their eyes are, my mom said whenever I was little, she said, before marriage, your eyes should be absolutely wide open. And after you get married, your eyes should be half shut. So never been married, don't really know, but I can tell from someone who laughed in the background right now that that's probably true. So whenever we're talking about evaluating some kind of vendor, we're trying to evaluate them based on a couple of different signs and potential. And some of those signs that you're communicating to them is how you're selling and if you're there, at the onset and throughout the entire tenure of the sales cycle. So this is a good way to communicate to them of like, hey, in the back end, whether you do that upsell or whether you do that cross sell, or whether you renew again, etc. Like, I'm going to take care of you from the very beginning of our relationship, because I took care of you up front and I didn't just value you only when you had dollars in your bank for me. So when would you use it? So cold outreach is a great place to use it. Customers who have churned, I cannot tell you the amount of times where I have churned from someone, meaning I did not use their service anymore, and their character made me use their service in the future. I actually have a top of mind story for this. There is someone that I know that essentially they were evaluating between two softwares, and essentially they were leaning towards vendor A, and their reps by a very slight margin leaned toward vendor B. So being a good leader, they said, okay, I want to make my reps happy here. So they went ahead and purchased vendor B. Vendor B didn't treat them that well. So they are now thinking about churning and going back to vendor A. So if they are to do that, whenever at the beginning of the relationship, whenever they selected vendor B, they actually had a great relationship with vendor A. And vendor A, through the entire tenure of the contract with vendor B, still added value to this person that I'm talking about. They actually would probably know who I'm talking about whenever they watch this video, or if they watch this video. But essentially, vendor A, even though they had lost the deal, and even though they didn't win their business, they still were very, very nice, very responsive, very respectful, and were consistently adding value to this person, even though they haven't bought the software, so that it's going to make this transition back to vendor A all the more easy because they showed them who they were whenever they didn't get what they want. So you can really see someone's true colors whenever they don't get what they want. Or I think Philip Seymour Hoffman said you can always tell the character of someone of how they treat a penny that they don't have to treat well. But this is a character issue of like, okay, how are we treating people whenever we don't get that ice cream, so that whenever we do get that ice cream, it compels the parent to want to give the ice cream even more because they know how they acted without it. Number 3, deals that have pulled mid-cycle. So this is a great opportunity to show them who you are with the Snowball Snuggy. Number 4, prospects who you're sending outreach to who are using a competitor. So I know that we all have high eyes on someone who's using our competitor. It's a great story if it's rip and replace. We really, really value people who are using our competitor because, deep down, I think we all see our competitors as the bad guy. It's interesting. I've worked for competitive companies before and both thought the other one was a bad guy, right? So I know that we think that whenever we're sending cold outreach into someone, but we need to make sure that we do not mudsling against competitors, because I'll sum it up with this. What Sarah says about Sally says more about Sarah than Sally. So your character, if I'm talking poorly about someone, even if it's, it's someone you don't know, all of a sudden you're thinking negatively about my character, not the person that I'm talking about. So if you're selling into someone who's using a competitor, it's even riskier to talk poorly, because not only are you mudslinging against someone, so it shows that you don't have that high character, but number 2, if you're calling on the right person, you are dissing a choice that they made. If you don't think that that is a diss to diss someone's choice, why don't you try walking up to a stranger or a guy that you like and saying, that shirt looks terrible on you? It was their choice. So our choices, especially as a leader, are our resume. They are a good indication of, something that we've done, something that we chose to do is almost more of a validation if we say it looks great, of that shirt looks great versus your eyes look great. The eyes you were born with, the shirt that you weren't. So if you're talking to someone about, some awful choice that they made because this competitor is terrible and why aren't you using us because we're faster and better and cheaper and X, Y, and Z, you're dissing a choice that person made to their face without really even knowing them. So Snowball Snuggy is a great place to diffuse that situation and make sure that you give them the psychological warming and feelies while you're talking to them about the competitor that they're using. Number 5, prospects who evaluated you and didn't buy, or prospects who didn't buy and went competitive. Even better situation to show them who you are in that moment. So how would you use it? So there are 5 different ways of which you can use it. Let's start at number 1. In cold outreach, I would use what I call the push-pull technique. So, if you want to know more about cold emails, if you go into the cold email session in the core sessions, I go much deeper there. But the push-pull technique is a way to achieve balance within your outreach and take the pressure off of someone if they don't want to respond or don't want to take the meeting. So it works like this. You would say hi, John. Reason for my outreach is I saw you wrote this article on LinkedIn where you're talking about scaling effective teams. One line that stood out to me was, it all comes down to great conversations. What if you can ensure your reps over at Okta were having great conversations and closing more deals as a result? Give me a shout Wednesday at 2 to unpack how VPs of sales leverage blank, to achieve that. And I promise we can part ways as friends if you're not impressed. Either way, keep the good content coming. Such a big fan of your team and hope you're staying safe with everything going on in the world. So this is a great place to intertwine COVID language, but you essentially are communicating to your prospecting in cold outreach that either way, whether they give you what you want or not, whether they buy your product or not, whether they book that meeting or not, you still value them. You still value them and you want to add value to them because of who they are. So this is a great way within cold outreach to deploy the Snowball Snuggy. Number 2, customers who have churned. Customers who have churned, I would go through the following 5 steps to deploy the Snowball Snuggy to communicate to them that you value them. Number 1, you're going to think I'm crazy. Address the reason that they churned by making your customer experience better. This isn't always available in a lot of case scenarios. I have seen too many CEOs or CROs try to run a post-mortem on a deal, pre-mortem, because they want to try and salvage the deal and communicate to their buyer like, oh, we take very seriously why you're churning. If they are churning because of issues that you should have dealt with 5 months ago. Post-mortem is not a psychological play to try and win their business back on the spot. Post-mortem is a place to understand why they are churning, to let them go, and then to fix what you messed up. It is not about the short-term sale. It is about fixing the product to make sure that buyers want to buy in the future. So I see too many CEOs. I could rattle off a list of them where they're like, oh, well, let's run a post-mortem to communicate to them like we want to take care of them. I'm like, or we could take care of future customers or current customers by fixing what this customer is talking about. This customer is talking about our integration is blah, 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 blah. Can we fix that? Let's go ahead and fix that so that people in the future want to buy from us. Our current customers are more happy, and maybe 6 months down the road or a year down the road, if their experience isn't great with our competitor, then they come back because we really fixed the issue that they were talking about. So there's a lot of talk, there's very little action. So I would say try and, fix whatever they're talking about in this issue whenever they're churning. So diagnose if that's happening with other customers. If you're able to solve it with other customers, so go ahead and say like, hey, let's take Intel. Intel churned from us the other day because our integration was sloppy. We actually made steps to make that better. I don't know if you guys were running into it with us. I'm sorry if you were. I wanted to release this new integration. If they are running into that problem, they'll probably say, wow, that was a really high character way to handle that situation, an accountable way to handle that situation. Make your new customer happy. Let's say it's IBM. You make IBM happy, and then you can very lightly in a strategic way say like, hey, Intel, I just wanted to ping you back and thank you. You guys churned because of our integration. It was hurtful at the time, but it helped me understand how important integrations are to our current partners. So as a result of that, we launched a new integration with X, Y, and Z and made it cleaner than ever before. And because of that, we were able to make IBM really happy and see more results than they ever had before. So I just wanted to thank you for that. Here's a gift because of that. Hope you're doing well. Let me know if I can ever be of any help, but thanks again. So you essentially want to keep them up to speed with what is going on with that thing that made them churn, so that either way, whether they come back to you or not, either way, whether they give you their business or dollars, you want to thank them for giving you the issue in the post-mortem that, again, you did not leverage to get them back on the spot, but you leveraged to make your product better, and you use that to make your current customers happier. And you want to let them know about that and thank them for what they did. So thanking people is a very underrated skill within selling. Of like, I think it was Samantha McKenna who taught this to me in terms of enterprise. She used to, if she lost a deal, send a thank you note to them saying like, hey, you engaged and you gave me some kind of evaluative process. I'm bummed that we couldn't make it, and connect the dots for you, but I'm excited that I got to meet you, etc. So one of the highest class moves. So TLDR, if you have customers that have churned, the Snowball Snuggy, figure out why they churned, not to sell them on the spot. If it's doable, go and fix it with your other current customers and ask them if they're running into it, diagnose that for them, and keep them up to speed very lightly in a thank you way, that you use that information and that intel to make a better customer journey for all your other current customers. Number 3 here is going to be deals that pulled mid-cycle. Deals are pulling more than ever before, especially during the pandemic. So budgets are being slashed, CFOs are getting involved, people are doing layoffs, etc. They're drilling down to what is the necessary spend. Because they're scared. They're scared, and I absolutely get that. This is a list of topics. A great time to start a business, huh? Anywho, so for deals that have pulled mid-cycle, you want to go through a litany of actions. You want to basically seek to add value, even though they pulled. Even though they pulled mid-cycle, because chances are, if they pulled mid-cycle, if they were in a serious purchasing decision, most deals that I have seen, they made a decision either way if it was already, close to the finish line. So if they're pulling mid-cycle, it's probably for a very good reason in most cases. So you want to seek to add value regardless of if they pulled or not. So number of ways to do this. If you want to hear more of ways to add value, then you can go to one of the sessions where I talk about ways to add value without giving for deals that have stalled until Q1. Here's a couple of them: network connections, sending over articles, solving another pain point that had nothing to do with your product, gifts, referrals, potential business for them, ideas to improve their day, making them aware of a threat that they didn't know about their business. But essentially, the Snowball Snuggy and deals for deals that have pulled mid-cycle is by sending over value to them, even though they aren't giving you money, because then when they do have money to give someone, they think of you because of how much value you added in the meantime. Number 4, this is prospects who evaluated you but decided not to buy, or they went with a competitor. Hi there, you're going to do a mixture of adding value, and you also want to, in the competitive situation, do what's down below. So why don't we go into that? Cold prospects who are using a competitor, how you can do the Snowball Snuggy, blow your mind. Or I think I will blow your mind. That are meant to be used. You want to teach your prospects who are using your competitor today how to use your competitor better. So core sessions is a list of evergreen topics deals from my competitors by teaching them how to use that software. Hi there, and welcome to core sessions. But I say like, hey, I have an idea on how you can get more fundamental basics to selling. This competitor. Are you willing to jump on the phone? They're like, what? So they jump on the phone, they're like, let's hear what you've got. And then I teach them, I'm like, hey, what's your engagement and what is your adoption here, and here? that are meant to be used by reps and like a 5-minute discovery. I'm like,
so this is going to be a list of evergreen
topics,
topics,
session number 3,
from cold emailing
not to be the crazy rep who does all this discovery on you. How are you
that are
using
hot
it?
and
X, Y,
popular
and Z.
topics with
Identify the
reps,
pain points of where they aren't using, some kind of feature or adoption. You should know your competitors' platforms you're selling against them.
Work your way through,
and then I'd say, okay, well, your adoption is probably low in this regard because of X, Y, and Z. Did you know that you can use this to really track this kind of call or track methodology adoption to drill down to what methodology works the best for you? No, I didn't. Okay, great. So why don't I teach you really quickly how you can do that? So you can do it by going into
I met with that one.
And you can teach them how to use their competitor better, your competitor better.
Have you ever seen
2 things?
League of Their Own?
Number 1, you just added value. You just taught them how to do something, better than they ever could before and for free. Number 2, if I'm a prospect, or the prospect's feedback that I was given whenever they switched was, our thought was, if you can teach us how to use your competitor better, what could you do within your own product? If you know their product well enough to teach it, what on earth, why are you working with this company? So you must, if you know both of these tools, you must know something that we don't know. And now we're open to evaluation for a switch. So, you need to add value to your prospect in your prospect scenario. And in this scenario, they're using your competitive tool. So I would teach them how to do something. I have an idea on how you could get more squeeze, or more juice out of your current setup. They'll absolutely jump on the call. They'll think it's the most bizarre thing in the world. You'll teach them a couple of things that they didn't know. And all of a sudden, number 1, you look like a hero and someone who has that high character that you're willing to teach them, even if they're sending money to someone else. Number 2, on the back end, they're thinking, wow, what great sales rep. And also, if they're with this other organization and they know this tool so well, what was the reasoning? And should I be evaluating this other tool? And why is the customer success rep from this competitive company not teaching me that? Why is this other company teaching me that? And what else can they teach me is what's going through their mind. So the Snowball Snuggy in this case, if they're using your competitor, or if they decided not to buy and they pulled mid-cycle and they went competitive, is to teach them within reason how to use that competitor so that they have the retroactive effect where they say, like, okay, I'm actually more interested in this person because, again, what Sarah says about Sally says more about Sarah than Sally. So, Sarah is teaching how to use a competitive tool. All of a sudden, I think that Sarah's great, because of what they're doing and what they're saying. So in summary, I know that it seems like a quick close. I know that selling seems like it's a game of aggression. It seems like it's a game of how pushy can I be and how aggressive can I be to get this deal across the line. And it is. But it's a game about proper aggression. If you're going to be aggressive, I would suggest respectfully, be aggressive about the value that you add. Be aggressive about how much you make that buyer's day better. Be aggressive about all the wonderful ways that you are teaching them things, regardless of it's within your product or not. And be aggressive about being in their corner and executing on the goals that they need done, because then they want to be open to buying your product as a result. So that is everything. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. If you like this session, you want to hear more, be sure to go ahead and visit all the other different sessions on the website. And if you really love this session and want to snowball your feedback to me, go tag Flip the Script on LinkedIn and me in your top 2 takeaways so I know what you want to hear more of. Either way, I hope you have a great rest of your day.